Praise and Production.
Gumbolaya podcast. Ramblin Ant. I'm rambling. I be rambling. I'm continuing with the list. I started a list. I only got to number 1. I'm gonna continue the list. This list was about relationships and common relationship tips, suggestions, things like that. And I recently had a conversation where someone brought up that they saw the episode with the list, felt great, felt good to be helping. Somebody help me. I'm trying to help somebody, right? So I saw a list online. I will try to remember to post a link. I don't know if I posted the link last time, but I'll try to remember to post a link this time. And so the first one was relationships are simple, right? You got 2 people trying to live life, different people, different things, different backgrounds, different foundations, different core values, different belief systems, different strategies, different fears, different shame. You know what I mean? So they're not simple, very complicated. And the goal is to learn how to treat everybody first. We went through the circles as well. Remember, learn how to treat everybody: dignity, honor, love, and respect. I went through the 9 an episode or 2 ago. That is from scripture. So, for those of you that believe in the word and believe in the power of scripture, there's 9: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Galatians 5:22, I think. And I'm pretty sure it's Galatians 5:22. So the first one in the list, though, was relationships are not simple, because we are not simple. People are just not, we're not simple. The second one is similar to the old expression maybe you've heard, where people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I'll read it to kind of get a good start. So it says, just because something isn't simple doesn't mean it's not good. So the first tip was relationships aren't simple, doesn't mean relationships aren't good. Human beings are a social species, even though species, I always feel weird saying the word species. Is it species or species? Species? One of those. We're not intended and designed in our neurological makeup and our evolutionary psychological spaces, up here. We're not designed to be nomads, I think is the word. Isolated. We don't do well in isolation. Even people that prefer it, when you got to deal with people, it ended up being a lot harder, because, you kind of have to learn some stuff that's just a part of dealing with people. And if you don't deal with people a lot, when you have to, it's going to be the worst, No disrespect to people that consider themselves loners. But this one just says, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not good. Right? In order to succeed in life and in the business world, you got to work hard and persevere. You aren't going to quit your job just because you actually need to try. Well, some people do. You shouldn't quit your job when you have to try. But, if you haven't been taught how to push through adversity, some people will quit when they actually have to try. So don't do that. Similarly, you shouldn't quit on a relationship just because it's not all flowers and rainbows, right? So this is literally taken directly from the article, and I'm going to do my best to remember to post the link to give credit where credit is due. Relationships are difficult. So for me, the hard parts are not necessarily any easier, but because my desire is to have healthy, happy relationships, because I enjoy relationships and I love people, and being around and involved with people makes me feel better in life in general. I have that as a motivation. So if you think about the people that do make you feel better in life and do kind of lift you up and do make your life better when you interact with them, that concept can be applied to everyone else as you choose, right? If you don't feel like putting in the work for a relationship, you don't have to, but you can't expect it to work well if you don't consciously choose to work at it. You know what I mean? You can't expect to build a house if you don't go to the store, grab the materials to build a house, you know what I mean? Or whatever you might be building. You got to get the stuff, you got to put in the effort, and then you'll have the result of your effort. But if you don't, you can't expect to get back $1 million if you haven't invested anything. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen much unless you got a rich relative or something like that. The article goes on, says, there's nothing wrong with being content. I definitely have found the good and the bad of the concept of being content, because there are some areas in life where your level of content might be discouraging, or just might not be what someone else is content with. And so when you're living life with someone, like if you're working with someone and your level of success in the area where y'all are interacting is, at one level, and they're expecting more, or maybe they're expecting less. You ever worked with someone who gets frustrated when you do a great job because then they're expected to do just as well and they don't want to, right? So contentment it's not quite that simple as there's nothing wrong with being content. I believe the point that they're making is that finding peace is a good thing. So you want to allow yourself to enjoy the things that are good. And if there isn't a problem, don't freak out. And I think that's very good advice, because I distinctly remember two people in my life in particular, right off the top of my head, two people that don't know each other, they literally on different coasts, but I remember having conversations with them that went similarly, and they're the only two people I know that have been so outspoken about it. And the concept was they fundamentally and truly believed that if someone in your life that you're in relationship with, both of these were romantic, intimate relationships, you know what I mean, where they were together. They truly believed that if you aren't regularly arguing with someone, and when I say arguing, I mean like verbal fighting. I don't mean like difficult conversation or talking about differences of opinion. I don't mean discussion, even difficult discussion. I mean like yelling, weaponizing your words, using somebody's vulnerabilities to hurt them and to verbally punch them in the heart, so to speak. I mean like verbal war, They truly believed that if you're not engaging like that on the regular, that someone either is being fake with you, or that they are not strong enough to be in a real relationship. So these particular people honestly believed that you only are truly in relationship with someone if you regularly fight with them. And I remember these two people vividly and clearly, because that concept was so foreign to me the first time I heard it. And then the second time it came up, it was many years later, and it's still quiet as, I was older, a little bit wiser, but it was still very perplexing. And it wasn't until many, many years later where I had walked with enough people and lived enough life to see where that belief can come from, and the lifestyles and the paths and the homes that some people are from, where that is such a normal atmosphere and environment. They identify that as home and healthy, that you gotta fight on the regular in order to recognize legitimacy and authenticity from someone. I don't believe that, but some people do, right? So this particular tip, I would suggest you consider, because everybody is not from that kind of environment. I'm not. We had I was raised in a home with human beings, so we definitely had very, very serious. We argued, and I wouldn't say we ever fought, but I was a very mischievous young one, and I pushed boundaries and stuff. So it got rough. You know what I mean? There was a lot of very hurtful and crazy intense conversations with my parents in situations where I would step over the line. Unintentionally would usually be conversation and discussion. But when it was intentional, when I was, trying to get away with stuff, it would be very frustrating for my parents. And I didn't always speak back respectfully when we were talking about it. So it could get pretty intense. So it's not like everything, like the article is saying, it's not like everything was flowers and butterflies and lollipops or whatever. But I don't come from a home where we hurt each other verbally. We didn't say mean things to each other. We didn't break each other down. We didn't insult each other, right? It was usually just, I think this, you think that, I'm the parent, shut up. You know what I mean? And my parents didn't even really do that a lot. But that was the vibe. It was me being a kid trying to find a way to get away with whatever I was trying to get away with. So that was my home life. So when I met these two individuals that talked to me about their need to argue and fight with somebody that they were in relationship, it was very shocking to me, because I'm like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to argue and fight at home. I don't want to argue and fight ever. But I definitely don't want to do that at home, because you go out in the world and you got to do what you got to do. Some situations are difficult. Some are a bit easier. Some are very difficult. Some are super simple, good things, bad things. But when you come home, you're trying to get that rest. You're trying to be at peace, or at least I'm trying to be at peace. Maybe you ain't trying to be at peace, but I feel like I've never met someone who gave me the impression that they legitimately had experienced and found peace, and they prefer something else. Have you? I haven't. I've never met anybody who I spoke to long enough to get the impression that they knew peace at one point in their life and it wasn't for them. I tried that peace thing. Nah, bruh. Never seen that. What I have seen and what I have experienced in conversation, one young lady I dated was from a non-peaceful environment, and she was one of those that I just mentioned. She was one of the two. And when we got on that topic, I think she kind of saw the look on my face. And I asked questions. I tried to be respectful, but I was very much like, I don't understand why you would feel like that. But I was young, I was young and dumb, and I ain't know nothing. I didn't know that for her, that was a normalized behavior. Yelling, I mean, like yelling at someone that you are close with, that you live with, or that you're trying to do life with in whatever way. That was very normal. She kept losing jobs because she was cussing people out, yelling and screaming at customers and stuff, like where she worked. Right. And we hit a situation where we had a misunderstanding. It was my fault. It was me. We had a misunderstanding where I thought one thing, she said what was intended to make a different point, and I understood something else. And as we were trying to talk through it, she was upset because it created a situation where I let her down, and she was upset about it, right? And so I'm apologizing, like, my bad. And she's like yelling and mad at me. And it wasn't something serious, like I was supposed to help her pay rent and I didn't. It wasn't nothing like that. It wasn't something life altering. It was something like we were supposed to go somewhere and I showed up at the wrong time or something. I don't know, something like that. But she was furious, yelling and screaming. I'm like, yo, what are we talking about? I don't want to yell and scream. And thus began the conversation of, well, you don't love me if you're not going to argue with me. I'm like, we can talk, but I'm not trying to yell and scream. I'm not trying to do that. And thus began the conversation. I believe she was because that was back home. And the second person was once I moved to Los Angeles, I talked to somebody who can relate to that. So she was the first person I'd ever met. And so you might be that person, or you might have somebody in your life that really feels like when there is peace, when there is harmony, when we's getting along, that it's not real, or that something's not right. Or another big one, people who believe that, not believe, but people who struggle to enjoy the good times because they are paralyzed by anxiety that the bad time is inevitably coming, which is true, but you got to give yourself the freedom to enjoy the sunset, even though you know you got to go to work tomorrow, right? You got to give yourself the freedom to enjoy a moment and not let your fear and anxiety of what might come in the future ruin the good moment. Otherwise, you'll never have the good moment. You got to have the good moment, right? You got to have a good moment sometimes. You got to be happy sometimes. Hopefully. I'm thinking that's what you want. You might not want that, but I want that. I want to have the happy moments, right? So if things are going well, don't let your anxiety take over. Don't let the fear of what's to come be the driving force. Don't let the inner voice convince you that there's a problem if there isn't a problem, right? Even if you spend time talking about what you might be concerned about, that'll help somebody get to know you. Just don't lean too heavy on the it's inevitable that there's an issue. Sometimes peace is just peace. Sometimes you meet somebody and y'all just get along over here. It's possible. It is. Some people just click with, and it's just cool. No problems. No issues, at least not at the moment. There will inevitably be some kind of conflict with every human being. But there are some people who will come into your life. Y'all cool. It's good. Nothing to worry about. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you don't know that might be a problem. Because when a problem is real, it will manifest. This, I think this relates. I mean, y'all let me know if you think this relates. Something else that just came to mind is people who helicopter. If you don't know this concept, when things are going well, those who struggle with the anxiety of, their pessimistic part of their brain will look for problems. And whatever you want to find, you'll find. The problem is you might find things that won't add up to a problem if you're not assuming they are part of the equation that adds up to a problem. If you assume ill intent, then the things that you find, you'll only cherry pick the things that add up to what you want to find, right? If you ever want to kind of learn a bit about this concept, read about people who study macroeconomics, or people who write about the psychology of statistics or philosophy of statistics and data research and things like that. And look for articles that talk about how misleading data and statistics and things like that can be, because if you're looking to prove a point, then you will only grab the information that supports the position you've already decided is right. All right. So in a relationship, if you think you have a dishonest roommate or a dishonest partner or a dishonest business associate or something like that, then you'll start to do what's called helicoptering, which is you will look at everything and pinpoint the things that add up to what you've already decided is the reality, right? So you're cherry picking out facts, ignoring a whole bunch of other stuff, because none of us notice everything. None of us know everything. None of us see everything, right? The problem with helicoptering and that kind of snooping, in an intimate relationship, going through people's emails and being all up in their social accounts and going through their phone. Yeah, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I'm saying don't do that, because if there is a problem, it will manifest. And if it doesn't manifest, is it a problem? Is it? I've gone through some hellishly devastating stuff in my life, and it wasn't a problem until I started to notice it. I didn't have facts, couldn't push forward with the inclination, and eventually I was made aware of what was going on. Right? And you deal with it then. But the snooping and spying and testing this and all that kind of stuff, it puts you in a place where you can't enjoy any of the rest of your life because of what's going on. And it also could lead to creating some issues that might not even be there. You know what I mean? Also put your head in a different place to be able to receive and have the honest conversation with somebody that might want to just tell you what's going on. Like I had a friend, for example, long time ago, who owed me some money, and it was a good bit of money or whatever, but I was doing okay and I didn't need it. But, I'm like, yo, you owe me money, let me get that money, right? And one day I went to go see him, and I get to the door and he's like looking around, out the window and stuff like that. And he answered the door with the chain on the door. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? And he was like, yo, I just wanted to see if you brought some people. I know I owe you money. I don't know if you brought some people to mess me up or whatever. It had never even occurred to me to do something like that, because he was my friend. Like, he was my homie. He was my friend. So in that moment, I'm thinking, why would I do that? Like, in retrospect, I know some people get down like that, but what I was thinking is, you know me well enough to know I've never tried to hurt you before. Like, I think it was like $400, something like that. That's a good bit of money if you don't got it. But even then, is it worth hurting somebody you love? I don't think so. And maybe some people do. I don't think so. I'm not going to hurt somebody over some money. I'm not going to hurt somebody over nothing, and maybe self-defense or whatever, to try and protect myself or protect somebody else or whatever, But he really thought that. So, I was like, homie, we can talk through the door, but if you really think I will hurt you, we need to talk about that. The money thing, I would like the money. I was like, I'm coming over here to talk to you about it, but I'm not finna hurt you. He opened the door and we started talking, and his demeanor was just surprising me, because he really thought that I was rolling up. I don't know. And, I might have been just shocked in that moment because it was a long time ago, but I'm thinking that, maybe I was in a place, a state of shock, because I was wondering what I might have said or done that would make him think that I would ever hurt him. And I do remember that there was a mother in the church that is in a family that I'm very, very close to. And she was a hard, loving kind of, church mother. Like, she would get in your face and tell you to change the way you're thinking for your benefit, but she would like yell at you about it. You know what I mean? Very, very tough, love kind of person. And I remember she got on me about that, and her advice, and I never forgot it. Her advice was, if someone asks you for something, you either give it or not. She said, don't do the borrow thing. If someone needs something that you have and you're willing to give it to them, give it, let it go. Don't worry about it. If you can't, then say, no, I can't do that. And reason being, if you give it, let it go, you're fine. If you can't, you say no, you're fine. But if you lend, right? If there's a borrow thing happening and you want it back, then you're in that limbo space. You're in that gray area. You got to keep talking about it. You got to be asking. You end up in this situation that I was in. Like, what happened is him and I had an argument after a church function, and she saw it and she started yelling at me. And I'm like, yo, he owe me money, man. What is this? And she was all in my face. And she was like, that is your friend. What's the matter with you? She was like, you don't need that money. You are fine. She was like, you do this, you do this, you do this. Your parents pay for everything. You don't need that money. And she was right. She was absolutely right. I didn't need it. And she was like, you're going to let some money end your friendship with somebody that you love. And she was right, because I did not want that. I let that mess go. I don't think he ever gave me that money. You know who you are. I don't care. I'm kidding. I don't think I ever got that money. And him and I are still friends. All right. So you might see this with respect to people that see this matter differently. It very well could be. But the fact that he felt like that's what was going to be going on, and I didn't even think of that at all. I was definitely wanting to talk to him about it, but I was all right. But if I was following him and watching what he was doing and asking his family questions and, poking and spying and all this type of stuff, I wouldn't have been able to have at least a little bit of peace that I did have. And when we would interact, all of that stuff would come out, because I'm keeping myself in a place of anxiety, trying to find what's really going on. Obviously, we knew what was going on. He owed me money. Like, we already knew that. But and I'm sure you've seen this, either you've been through it or you've seen it in other people's lives. When someone is suspecting there's some stuff going on, when somebody thinks, somebody's stolen some money, or someone has done, some dirt in a business deal or whatever, or someone's being unfaithful in relationships, or somebody's lying about something or whatever, they start to snooping. They start to spying. That's what PIs do. They look, and, sometimes it's necessary, but I say if it's not necessary, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Because anything that is relevant and is necessary, it will manifest. And when it does manifest, you'll be able to deal with it at that time. If it's caused calamity in your life, you would have had peace up until that point. So I'm thinking of a lot of people that I've spoken to that really don't believe that. And I'm sure a very good argument could be made for the contrary. I'm saying, in general, be at peace about a relationship until there is significant reason to have issue. Don't make it up. Don't spend your time looking for something that you haven't been presented with significance, right? If you've been presented with something, if you found out something, if you heard something, if something comes your way without the helicoptering, of course, deal with it. Of course. I'm not saying ignore problems. I'm not saying be dumb and ignore an issue. You talk about it, you do what you got to do. But I am saying, if you look for problems, you're going to find problems. But you might be finding something that creates the problem you're trying to avoid in the first place, or you're trying to solve. So just be careful with that. So the second tip is simply, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There are very real possibilities in your life to find and find yourself in relationships and in seasons of relationships and dealing with people where you can actually have peace. If you don't assume ill intent, you'll find more good than bad usually. But if you assume that everybody's out to get you, that everybody's a liar, everybody's dishonest, or that if you assume that if there's peace, that the realness is being hidden, you won't be able to enjoy actually finding peace. It's possible. It happens. You know, a lot of stuff can disturb it, but it does happen. So enjoy the good moments. Lean into love. You got somebody in your life that makes you feel good when you're around them, you know, in a safe and healthy way, right? Lean into love. Be real about the boundaries that you have learned in your life that separate healthy from unhealthy. But if you find a healthy, you know, partner, healthy friend, healthy business partner, healthy significant other, whatever, don't create a problem if there isn't one, because the problems will come and you deal with them when they come. But if it ain't, enjoy the moment. Enjoy the blessing of joy in a relationship. Enjoy it. That's the goal. That's the point, right? That's the whole point. Enjoy the moment. Smile, hug, you know, do the handshake if it's not somebody you're trying to hug or whatever. Throw compliments, throw love, do stuff, go places, and then, you know, enjoy the relationship if it's cool. Do it. And then like, and then subscribe, and then share this. Love y'all.
If it's my time, then it's my time. Worry about yours, 'cause I got mine. 'Cause I got mine. Worry about yours, 'cause I got mine. 'Cause I got mine. Praise and production.